In news overseas, as tensions have increased in the Asia-Pacific, U.S. Secretary of Defense Ash Carter is in Hawaii to meet with 10 of his counterparts from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or the ASEAN. VOA's Carla Babb lays out the areas of concern for the region.
ASEAN defense ministers have a lot on the agenda as they meet here in Hawaii. China still claims control of most of the South China Sea in defiance of an international tribunal ruling earlier this year that said Beijing's claims weren't legal. About $5 trillion in trade passes through the sea's international waters each year, and U.S. Secretary of Defense Ash Carter says America will continue to secure those waters in the region, whether or not China abides by the ruling.
And we will, as we have demonstrated and as we will continue to demonstrate, fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows.
Another growing threat, North Korea's continued attempts to launch ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Some of these ICBMs have flown over not just Japan, but the Philippines has been on alert at various times. This is seen as something that can destabilize the entire region with terrible consequences, not just for Korea's neighbors.
In addition to the long-standing threats concerning North Korea and the South China Sea, a new menace has emerged from halfway around the world.
Non-traditional security threats and terrorism are becoming increasingly important, especially in Southeast Asia.
Senior defense officials say a few hundred radicalized Southeast Asians have already returned to the region from Iraq and Syria, with hundreds more expected to return over time.
Chechen's newly elected strongman leader Ramzan Kadyrov has sought to weed out challenges to his rule. Supporters say his iron fist approach is needed to maintain peace in Chechnya after 2 brutal wars and the threat of militants, including those returning from fighting in Syria. But critics say it risks radicalizing more locals and threatens the development of democracy in Russia as a whole. VOA's Daniel Scherf has this report from Grozny.
Grozny's Akhmat Kadyrov Mosque, named after the father of strongman Ramzan Kadyrov, fills up for Friday prayers. Since his appointment by Russian President Vladimir Putin, the younger Kadyrov has fought a largely successful battle against Islamist insurgents who killed his father in 2004. But rights activists argue Kadyrov's iron-fisted methods, such as collective punishment for militants' relatives, make the cure as bad as the disease.
Instead of dictatorship of the Islamic fundamentalists, we get a different dictatorship that is also spreading beyond Chechnya and is a threat to Russia similar to the one that Ramzan Kadyrov is fighting against.
Kadyrov shows a fierce loyalty to Putin, branding Russia's opposition leaders as traitors, and in February posted a video showing 2 of them in a sniper's crosshairs. The threat came 1 year after Chechens connected to Kadyrov were arrested for the killing of opposition leader Boris Nemtsov next to the Kremlin's walls.
He's a brother of Putin, maybe minor brother of Putin, and he feels, and he will feel once again after elections, is able to do everything, not only in Chechnya, but across Russia.
Kadyrov denies having anything to do with Nemtsov's murder, though he praised the main suspect, calling him a real Russian patriot. Kadyrov supporters argue his loyalty to Putin ensures a high degree of autonomy after 2 bloody wars failed to bring independence, while his strong-arm rule maintains peace. But Kadyrov's status has angered some in Moscow, and officials worry hundreds of Chechens who joined the fight in Syria may return and recruit those disaffected.
I know that many cases have been forged, and every such case of a man unfairly punished or killed results in new influxes of militants into the underground.
Critics warn Kadyrov's interpretation of Islam and demonizing of others may also drive some away. Meanwhile, in a mosque named after Kadyrov's mother, Chechens continue to pray.
Space holds mysteries and challenges that continue to intrigue scientists. The Mars 2020 project of the U.S. National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, has enlisted scientists from around the world to work in developing a new generation of the Mars rover. Armin Amirian of VOA's Armenian service has more on the NASA program in this report narrated by Arman Tarjimanyan.
It glows like the surface of the sun.
A diverse team of professionals at NASA is working to expand the horizons of human knowledge. Armen Turian, a mechanical engineer of Armenian descent from Los Angeles, is part of NASA's Mars 2020 program aimed at developing a new Mars rover capable of independent decision-making.
The mission is scheduled to be launched in 2020. There are more developed instruments compared to the previous one, and it reflects all our previous experience.
The Mars 2020 project, with an estimated cost of $1.5 billion, has enlisted scientists from around the world. Turian is a member of the team that tests every part of the future rover. There is still a lot of work, as the extra smart rover consists of thousands of parts.
There are few people who can say they worked on the development of a machine that will explore another world. So I am very proud that I and other Armenians are involved and can make a difference on this project that is significant for the entire world.
NASA plans to send the new Explorer to Mars in 2020. A descendant of the Curiosity rover, the new Mars rover will be equipped with more precise instruments to explore the planet more thoroughly.
We will only instruct it daily on when to start and when to end the work. These wheels and suspension were built to pass over large rocks and to maneuver in tight places. But the most important feature is that this is a real robotic system with an independent decision-making capability.
According to data collected from the NASA Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, some of the bodies of water on the planet were formed much later than initially thought, suggesting Mars may once have been able to sustain life. Turian believes the new rover will go a long way toward helping scientists solve the many mysteries of the red planet.
Climate change, acid rain, excessive logging, and pest infestation threaten forests in many parts of the world. This is including Eastern Europe. Local authorities are fighting back, and some of them are even seeking help from international environmental organizations. VOA's George Pudick has this report.
Excessive logging is devastating forests in Eastern Europe. In order to curb soil erosion after heavy logging in the 1950s, Bulgaria's communist government replanted almost 700,000 hectares, but mostly with pine trees, in many places at lower altitudes than they grow naturally. After the fall of communism, lack of proper forestry left a lot of fallen trees on the forest floor, making them ideal breeding ground for bark beetles. Helped by favorable weather, the beetles soon attacked healthy trees.
Climate changes leads to increased temperature, which puts trees into stress. This stress leads to reduction of vitality and life functions in those trees. They become victims of bark beetles.
Authorities have started clearing the infested areas, dragging out the dead trees and selling the firewood at discounted prices. Given the opportunity, nature bounces back.
If we look closer, we will see that in many places, after we take the coniferous trees out, we see the saplings of beech, oak, ash tree. The local broadleaf trees are taking back their normal place.
Meanwhile, in neighboring Romania, authorities are fighting to save some of Europe's last pristine forests from both illegal and legal but irresponsible logging.
When companies go to the forest to carry out logging, doing it with no responsibility and causing damage, it is as serious as when an individual does it on his own without authorization.
One of the modern weapons against that is a smartphone app through which ordinary people can track and report trucks carrying illegally cut timber. The Romanian government also called on volunteers from the international environmental group Greenpeace to help create a national database of what is left of its virgin forests. Volunteers were deeply impressed with what they saw.
I found some forested landscapes that I've never seen in my life, ever.
Experts say it was probably their remoteness that saved Romania's virgin forests from even greater devastation.